Thanks for tuning in to Hunt Ready, guys. This is J-Dub. Gonna come out here real quick and make or show you guys how to do a freeze-proof set. So what we've got right now, it's kind of sleet rained, mist rained for the last 2 days. We're in the very end of December. It's like 50 degrees today. And in just a few days, we're going to be down in the 20s and teens and single digits at night. So this is pretty common for Illinois. So right now it's going to be super muddy. And this is probably the worst conditions to set traps in. Mud when you set them, and then freezing. So there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years in doing that that work fine when it's frozen or dry, but they absolutely are going to give you some serious heartaches when you're setting in the mud. Like I said, that's probably the worst. That's the worst, setting traps in mud. Honestly, there's really I would much rather have completely frozen ground than mud or even dry dirt when it comes to this time of year. Just because, the conditions kind of stay the same. But right now we've got, like I said, 50 degrees. It's super muddy. And I'm going to show you guys how to put in a freeze-proof canine set, cat set, all the same. Anything you're burying in the ground for dirt holes, step-down dirt holes, whatever. So there's a few different methods or components you can use to bed a trap in these conditions. You got peat moss, you got wax dirt, probably the two most commonly used. Some guys are using wax sand, and then now there's some other stuff like whatever those cover holes, whatever that. I've never used those ever. But the kind of a newcomer is this coal shale from No BS. At least new to me. I don't know, people may have been using it for a long time in coal country, but up here we do have coal, but it isn't a common thing to see coal everywhere. But the No BS coal shale has been working very, very good for me. Really good. And if you get it at conventions, it's pretty dang cheap. You can get 50 pounds for about the price of wax almost. So it's very economical and really no time involved in it. I do sift it. I've been sifting it. Last year I didn't sift it at all, and there's some pretty good chunks in there. And you can sift out those big chunks, and then I've seen guys spread that out on like a tarp or something and use some kind of a roller and break it all up, because it's a pretty good amount that you'll have left over. So sifting it is probably a really good thing to do. Just cuts out on them big chunks. Economically wise, that's really good. But the best, the cheapest is peat moss by far. But it's a little bit more difficult to bed in. It's spongy. And it will soak up moisture after a while and freeze. But so of the three, I have three of them here. I've got the shale, the coal shale, I've got the wax dirt, and then I've got peat moss. Now, I'm sure everybody knows, but just for beginning trappers, wax dirt, I used that for quite a while before I found this coal shale. Some big chunks on the top of it. But it just looks like dirt. It's a little bit chunky. This is probably a run that I didn't do too great on. It's kind of a pain in the ass to make, to be honest with you, unless you can get a cement mixer. That makes it a lot easier if you get a cement mixer and you can heat that up and throw your wax and dirt in there. So there's, a good amount of labor involved, and you know, it's just kind of an all-around pain finding some good dirt and all that. So I'll be primarily using peat moss and coal shale. I'll use peat moss early season and then coal shale later on. But the coal shale is, as you can imagine, just coal dust. I got some in a thing here, coffee can. So that's that. But that works really, really good. So I'm gonna do a demonstration today. I'll be using peat and coal shale. So we'll get down here and get something going. All right, guys, so here's our dirt hole, and I just used my driver. It's so muddy that you don't even need your auger. It'd actually be kind of a pain with the auger. So wall you out a hole for your dirt hole. You can do that before or after, whatever. But so when you're setting in the mud like this, now is when it's like really kind of important. You want the trap bed to be bigger than your trap. So you know what I mean? So like a lot of guys use cookie cutters. I personally hate them. I mean, if you're trapping in dry ground, that's fine. But when you've got your trap here, you want, you know, at least I would say an inch around that's bigger than the jaws of your trap. And you also want now to have a nice like concave trap bed where it angles, you know, it starts angling down like a bowl. And so with that, I'll show you why. So here's our dirt hole. I'm gonna put my trap about right here. I don't measure anything ever. I just kind of eyeball it. Sometimes it ends up, you know, whatever they say, 6 to 8 inches. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Really doesn't matter, in my opinion. But so you can see where my hammer is there versus the jaws. So then we're gonna do the same thing on this side. And I wouldn't even lay the trap out. I'm just kind of showing you guys this. Normally I would just start ripping. And if you had a shovel or something bigger, it'd be good to use that too. But so you can kind of see here, this is our general size we want. And like I said, we want it a little bit bigger. And we want it to go in at like a bowl shape. And I'll show you why here. So this is super, super, super muddy. So we'll get this top little layer off here. So you can see just how muddy that is. All right. So that's probably gonna be pretty good. Yeah. So then our jaws are not up against the dirt. Our jaws aren't right up against the dirt here. I'll pound this out for the levers. But you want that gap there. So let me do this. And this is how I like to do my levers. Pound that down, and then you want, like I said, you want this bowl down here in the bottom. Okay. And your levers are going to go right down in here. And there we go. That is perfect. Okay. We will
Hopefully you can see that good. It's kind of a pain to do this by yourself. So we'll put our stake in right down the middle. I don't plan on leaving this trap here, so I'm not going to run that all the way home, but you would want to run that down quite a bit further. So now, whether you're using peat moss, coal shale, wax dirt, any of that, now you want to basically insulate this trap from the ground. You want that trap fully encased in whatever it is you're bedding it in, peat moss, coal shale, wax dirt, whatever. This is where it's very, very important, and where you can either have frozen in traps or traps that are working. So we're gonna just go with the peat because everybody can get peat. It's super, super easy to work with. As far as getting it, drying it, I don't even sift it. So you just want to put a good blanket in here like so. Okay, you don't want any of this dirt, mud touching your trap. Okay? I got my coal shale right in the way. I brought it with. I was not even gonna do it, but so there we go. So get your trap in here. All right. Now I'm gonna set this night latch. Just like that. All right. So, and it's muddy, so you can push that trap kind of down and it'll all conform, but you've got this peat moss that is protecting that trap from freezing in. Okay. Now we're gonna use a pan cover. I like screen wire pan covers. There's a lot of stuff out there. The screen wire pan covers from No BS just works good. I've used coffee filters and they work good until they get wet. And then they freeze. Or at least that's how they did for me. So we'll put our pan cover on here. And then we're gonna cover this entire trap with peat moss, just like so. Scrape it around. Just wanna find your pan and the end of your trap. Okay, so now you've got your pan uncovered right here. So now you're just gonna go and you're gonna just press this in all the way around. You wanna be on the outsides of the jaws here, pressing this down into that spot. Okay, so find your jaw, and if the trap goes off in your hand, it isn't gonna hurt nothing, but you're gonna get a face full of peat moss. So here's where you just want to press all this in, press it down in here on the back side, just like that. Okay, and you want to keep doing that all the way around. So this is where I said, you know, this is kind of spongy, and it is. Wiggle that down in there. And so you can kind of see how I've got that all the way around. You can feel the jaw. Just work that down in between the jaw and the dirt. And just get that down in there around the levers. Okay. And that trap is bedded solid, even in peat moss. And then you can just, you want just a good, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch covering. You want the pan to be the lowest spot. And then you can see there's that little bit of a lip there from that, but you can just kind of pound that down. And now, I will normally take some sort of dry dirt. I usually have it with me. I don't have anything with me. So I do want to put something over that peat moss so it don't blow away. and uncover your pan. So we'll just take a little bit of the wax dirt here. You can see that's kind of chunky, so that wasn't the best wax dirt that I've ever done. You just want to put something over it. Doesn't have to be a lot. And so like I said, you know, I don't camouflage my dirt holes. I'll take this and get that all going out of there. I wish I'd have brought some dry dirt. And so you can just go like so. That's really bad wax dirt. That's probably why I ain't used it. It's not so bad on the bottom. That was just where it was sitting on top. This is a few years old, but you get the point. If you've got a little bit of dry dirt, spread that over the top. Even if you had to use a little bit of this, that, you know, just a real small covering of it ain't gonna hurt anything. That's why I also use 4-coil traps. They'll blow through that little bit of crust. The biggest issue most people get with their traps freezing is the jaws actually freeze to the ground. And in this muddy, this is not even super muddy. I've set in even muddier stuff than this. But that's when you have the biggest chance for it. And one thing that I want to kind of hit on, it's okay to do this in dry ground, but so you see a lot of guys, when they can't get their traps bedded, they'll bang on this side, and they'll come over here and they'll bang that side in. Well, what you just did is you pushed this mud up over top of this jaw, potentially even on both sides, and that's going to freeze, and that's going to not allow your jaws to come up. So that's really unnecessary, really, if you get everything packed around it like we did. And you're going to do the same thing whether you're using peat moss, coal shale, wax sand, anything. It's more difficult to do with the peat moss because it's kind of spongy. But so don't go in and try to bang your jaws, you know, on each side there to try to get that in there solid. You really don't want to do that, especially when it's freeze thaw. You'll have that mud, like I said, you'll create a lip over your jaw, and that's going to freeze your traps down. And like I said, most guys that have frozen traps, it's not the crust on top that's keeping them from fire, unless you've got a whole bunch of stuff on top. But usually your jaws are frozen to the ground. If you got a good 4-coiled trap, it'll bust up through that crust on top, as long as the crust ain't, you know, an inch thick. So keep the covering light on top of your traps. If you have dry dirt around, you could leave peat moss on top. I would probably leave peat moss on top. If you say like today, I didn't have the wax dirt or nothing with me, I'd probably shake a little bit of this over the top. But if it's pure mud, I mean like really, really mud, just leave the peat moss. It'll be fine. So that's all I got there on that subject. So if you guys have any questions on that, go ahead and leave them in the comments. That's about it. Like I said, just find a system that works for you. Peat moss is super cheap, super easy to work with, super easy to find. Pretty much all year long. Even when the garden season's up, you can still find peat moss. So that's why I like to use peat moss quite a bit, is just because it's cheap. Set that back down in there. But let's see what else. I'd say the next best thing, in my opinion, time-wise, cost-wise, and really how it beds, that coal shale really does bed good. It's quite a bit more to buy that stuff and have it shipped to you. So if you can get it at a convention, it was 25 bucks for a 5-gallon bucket of it at the conventions. That's pretty damn cheap. And then, like I said, I didn't sift it at all last year, and there's some pretty good sized chunks in there. Coal breaks easy, so it's not going to hold your jaws open or anything. I think it just might maybe, feel a little funny on pads if they're stepping on that. So I sifted it this year, and I just put I've got one of them wire sifters from Iron Trail. It's the silver wire sifter, but they're all pretty much the same size, and they fit over a bucket like just perfect. And I just, from one bucket to another, sifted it. You got to go kind of slow. But so then I got a bucket full of the thicker stuff that didn't go through the sifter. You can bust that up with a roller I haven't messed with it to see how it's going to go, but I've seen guys use like a roller and kind of smash it up on a tarp, and then you've got more powdery or coal dust, which is all coal shale is. But you guys that live in coal country, it's probably super easy to go find it at a coal mill. I would assume. Kendall's up in Iowa, so there must be some coal up in his neighborhood where he gets it all from. But otherwise, 25 bucks for a 5-gallon bucket, pretty hard to beat that. That's not far off. I can't remember how much peat is now. I forget how much that is for a bale. But it's definitely cheaper than doing wax dirt and less time consuming. So that's about all I got on this one, guys. Appreciate you guys for watching. Like I said, if you got any questions, throw them in the comments. Keep the views and everything coming. Appreciate you guys. Probably ain't gonna have another video out this year, so Happy New Year. We'll see y'all next year.